Take me out one more time is all you said to me. And I swore I heard a smile in your voice.
Hi, good morning. This is Tailinh Agoyo, and this is Rise and Thrive, Indigenous Arts, Culture, and Joyful Acts of Resistance. Good morning, everybody. I hope today finds you feeling well and healthy and safe. I'm here with several guests today. I am one of the directors of We Are the Seeds, and I've been working with Zachariah Julian, who is a musician, on a project called Gathering Seeds. And we have a few of the artists who have participated in the project with us today: Zachariah, Renata Yazzie, and Colleen Farwell.
Hi.
So if you can go, and this is the first time we've had several guests on, so we'll see how this works out. If you can, we can go around and if you can introduce yourselves, and then we can get started talking about the project. I guess we'll start with Zach. Introduce yourself. Please share what your tribal affiliation is and where you live, where your community is from. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Zachariah Julian. I'm from the Hickory Apache Nation, which is located in northern New Mexico, about 25 miles from the Colorado border. And currently I'm down here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, just writing music and creating art.
Thank you. Renata?
Good morning, Yat Ebene, Shay Renata Yazzie and Shia, Tor Haglini Nishleki, Ani Bashachin, but Agni Dashache, Humagni Dashanella. I am Navajo from the Diné Nation, and I also live here in Albuquerque, where I attend graduate school at the University of New Mexico for music, studying piano performance and ethnomusicology.
Wonderful. Colleen, hi. Is Colleen there? Do you think Colleen is having a bit of an internet connectivity issue? Colleen, if you can hear us and you can try to call in on another device, you can call in anytime throughout the hour. So Colleen is the writer of a book called I Will Carry You, which I have right here. It's this beautiful children's book. And she joined the project as a writer, and she wrote 4 gorgeous pieces. So we'll talk to her in a bit. Zachariah, can you give us a bit of a background on how this project started? And we've worked together on this over the past month. So, but I'd love for you to give your perspective on, how it was born and what has happened over the month.
Well, we had a lot of meetings. Everything was being shut down. A lot of gigs were being lost and performances are being lost. And I think you and I had a couple of meetings. Like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do?
Right.
And I remember you were like, you should try to come up with an idea. I was like, yeah, I'll come up with an idea.
Come on, do it.
I just kept pushing back the deadline. Like I couldn't come up with anything, honestly. And I had ideas, but it wasn't working. I was thinking too big. And how the idea came, though, is every time I go out, I wear earphones and listen to music. And I've always enjoyed how kind of life and society syncs up with the music that you're listening to during your daily travels out and about. And that's when it hit me, the idea of the metronome, the rhythm, changing that rhythm, and seeing how the world adjusts around you. That's really where that came from.
So for our listeners and viewers who aren't familiar with the project, basically Zachariah chose a group of artists and presented them with, it was 7 artists total, is that correct?
Yes.
And presented them with, and I was one of the artists too,
yes.
It was a fantastic experience. A theme every week and BPM, metronome, rhythm.
Yeah,
and
it increased. Yeah.
It increased as time went on. So the themes were home, animal, dust, and candle. Before we move on, I just want to see, is Colleen, are you connected now?
It seems that I am. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes. Hi. So happy to have you join us. Can you introduce yourself real quick?
Yes, I am Colleen Farwell. I grew up, was born and raised in the Crow Territory of Montana, and I currently live in Mohawk Country in upstate New York with my 6 children. And I am mainly a writer. Zachariah has opened me up to this whole idea of music now, which is very intriguing. So
Good.
I love this whole project.
That's great. Renata, when you came onto the project, what did you think, and how has your experience been going week by week? And let's all just acknowledge that we started this project in pandemic, in quarantine, with all these unknowns, and then the last week of the project, obviously a lot of things have happened in the world, and it added a lot of layers. So the work has shifted every week based on what was going on in the world.
Yeah.
So what's your experience been?
My initial thought was like, this is terrifying. Because I have never considered or thought of myself as a composer. I like to curate spaces for music that's composed by other people. But and I've done a few like short film, a few things for theater, that have felt really out of like not my thing. They've really felt, I guess, awkward for me. But I thought it would be good to just try and see what happens. And yeah, so that was like my initial thought was just sort of like, well, this is going to be interesting. Because I really haven't composed seriously outside of my music theory classes, like assignments that I had to do. So yeah, that it was quite a journey for me, because I started out writing like something I would write for an assignment. And as sort of the weeks went on, I became more comfortable and more confident, I guess, in what I was able to do, and sort of in my own creativity, which was, I guess, really interesting within the context of the pandemic, just because I think that insecurity left a lot of people feeling unsure about not only their situations, but in some instances, unsure about what they were able to do and what kinds of things they were able to continue doing. So for me, it was really interesting, I guess, to grow some confidence in an area I didn't think I could grow confidence in.
That's wonderful. Colleen, what has your experience been like?
This has been absolutely amazing. First of all, I was really surprised and flattered at the invitation to be part of this collaborative. And then I haven't really sat down to write in a long time. I have 6 children, and just the day-to-day everything. It's something that I've really kind of stepped away from, although you're always writing in your mind. There's always poetry, I think, in your mind. And so the time restrictions, the beats per minute, everything that was put on the project really required you to think at different levels. And that was really surprising. I've really just appreciated the whole exercise. There's some things about my writing that I didn't particularly like that happened. For instance, the after the first poem, I'm not normally a rhymer. And my first poem kind of had this cadence and rhyme to it. And then because everything came so close together, I couldn't seem to step out of that, but I like it. I mean, I like what came out of this project is what I'm trying to say. And my grandfather always told me when I was younger, because I loved poetry, he said, songs are poems. Songs are just poems. And it's always stuck in my head. And I always thought, maybe one day I'll write a song. And I think given the beats per minute, when we got up to where were we the third time? 125?
105. 125.
Yeah, 125.
I didn't think, I'm like, nobody can do anything with this. And then I got online looking up, like, okay, what are songs with beats per minute at 125? And I got like Prince, When Doves Cry, like all of these songs that you just don't think, I'm thinking about workout music.
Yeah, you're thinking it's so fast, right?
Yeah.
But
hear the metronome, it's so fast, but then you start listening to these songs and you're just like, this is so doable. And when Dust came, I did not think that was the 125 that I could do it. And then I've always stepped away from listening to anyone else when I'm creating. But Zachariah posted his piece, and I had all of these pieces on my table of what Dust was going to be, and it was trying to come together. And I was thinking like a dust storm in Phoenix, and always this basis of a relationship. And then I just played Zachariah's, and oh my God, it's like it brought everything together for me. The way he put that together, I just had to sit down, and I had to listen to it like 3 times. It was just beautiful. And then the rhythm that he followed, it just, everything fell together for me. So that I really appreciate about a collaborative, is that you really do draw from other people's momentum, I guess. It was beautiful.
Thank you. Zach, can you talk about the other artists who have participated and what it's been like? Because you're in your life, you're a creator, you're an art creator, and now we had you more on, you're creating in this project as well, but we had you more on the admin side, where you were reaching out to artists and talking about W-9s and, deadlines and things like that. And that's not necessarily where you tend to focus a lot of your creative energy. So what has that process been like? And also, what has the process been to see all the artists involved evolve throughout the weeks, and how their comfort level has changed throughout the weeks?
Well, it's the admin side of it. It's just wearing another mask. I always kind of split up my day of like, I'll send out emails and messages during this time frame, and then I'll unplug myself from that, which took a little while, a couple hours, and then I'll plug myself back into, is there any art in me today, and any inspiration? And
Right.
I would just kind of fiddle with that for a while. So yeah, it was always kind of jumping back and forth. I would listen to a lot of you. I would talk to a lot of you, and seeing a lot of you grow. Renata talking about composing a new song every week, and she's never really done that before in this kind of context. And seeing her becoming more and more comfortable, seeing her becoming just more comfortable and expressive, and learning to let go. And that was one of the main goals I had for all of you, including myself. I needed you guys to let go, and that was one of the reasons I increased the beats per minute. We ended at 150, and it's not that it's fast, but it's not the fastest. I honestly, I was telling Renata, I wanted to end it at around 200 beats per minute. That was the last day. And yeah.
So how did you choose the themes? That I know that this was very well thought out, but you didn't give us any background as to how you chose the themes, or that you were increasing the BPMs. But I know that you had a reason for all of that.
Home was the easy one. I picked home first because we all got quarantined, and some of us didn't have a choice in where we picked to be quarantined, and that became our new home. And I wanted you guys to start reflecting, like, what am I looking at every day? What am I seeing every day? And then when got to Animal, that one was from before I moved away from my reservation. I moved away 20 years ago. I hung around with my medicine man a lot when I was living in Santa Fe, before I came down to Albuquerque. And one of the things he told me was, you need to find your wild side, your animal side again. And it took me years to figure out what he meant. And it's all subjective. Everybody has a different definition of what he meant. And that was me giving it to you guys. Find your animal side, let go, go back to the primal. And it was interesting to see what you guys found. Dust was the one where I said, we're going to take a left turn, really sharp. And I want to see what you guys do. I want you guys to go internal. I want you guys to find yourself in different stages. I want to find those layers. And then Candle was the heart to me. Candle was the flame. It was the flame in the dark. It was everything together at one. It was animal, it was home, it was dust, it was candle. It was the light at the end of the tunnel. That's really what it is. And I'll be sending out an email to all of you guys about, I'm not going to go into more detail about it, but that's really where that went to. Well,
that's beautiful. It was a beautiful journey being on both sides of it, the production side and also as an artist. Renata, what I thought, Renata and Colleen, actually for Animal, both of you used bear as your concepts. And we thought that was really interesting. Renata, you had talked about maybe developing these pieces into something further. Do you want to comment on that, or are you not ready to yet?
So a lot of people ask me, so when are you going to come out with an album? and I always tell people, and it's something I've talked with a lot of musicians, including Zach, is just sort of like, you just don't come out with an album of classical music. I mean, when you record an album of classical music, which is what I play, like predominantly, there's like a level that's of like, there's a really high level that you have to meet in order to record, and I guess in some ways be taken seriously, have your recording being taken seriously. And so, but people still ask, and I'm like, well, I think it would be nice to do something with children's pieces. And this may or may not be the start of that. I do want to turn these pieces, kind of maybe do some editing on them and turn them into a collection that people can play, and that they're easy enough that people who are studying piano on the res, people who are taking piano lessons in high school and things like that can access. So because what they're playing in high school, what they're playing in the little Alfred books and whatnot is, none of it is native. It's kind of racist. So, so I thought it would be nice to turn that into something bigger there, and maybe they become part of a recording, maybe they don't. But for sure, I would love to sort of edit them and release them for other people to learn and other people to play.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
your pieces are beautiful. Yeah. Colleen, hi. So I'd love to talk more about process with you, and how every week, because we're in quarantine and a few of us have kids, and some of us have other jobs that we're doing. Like it's just been this whole job. I want to talk to everybody about this actually, but just like this juggling process, and to have that deadline, and to have to create something every week and know, what, I really wanted 3 more months to work on this, or 4 more months, or, but how did those restrictions actually push your art to a different level, and help you to create rather than restrict you?
I think that they were very freeing. In the beginning, when I first started the process, it was just, I'm like, am I going to get this out? And then when we had home, I had my first grandbaby during home. So I was a little delayed. I think I was a day late, Zachariah. We don't have to talk about that right now. But when I let that poem go, I felt like it wasn't finished. But there was something about having the timeline that I felt really good about it. I was like, I had this limited amount of time. We had a grandbaby in there. I got to,
Amazing.
If you go in, you can't come out because they won't let you back in because of COVID. So it was a very big deal. And, just a beautiful time. And so through that whole process, out came my home, which was really interesting because I know Zachariah was talking about COVID and where we are now, but my home came from my childhood home when I was a little girl. That's where my poem came from. And to have that restriction and to let that go in that time space was just very freeing. It was very uplifting. And I felt really good about it. I think I could have held that poem for years and always tweaked it and always found something to not like or to change. But in that moment and in the time frame I had, when it went out, I was like, I did that in a very small amount of time and space. And I think as an artist, you always carry those words. And then when you're pressed to put them together in a short amount of time, it's kind of amazing what comes out of it. So that's been a beautiful part of this process for me. And I'm thinking now, I need to put those restrictions on myself and just sit down and write, because it's like cooking a beautiful meal for my kids. It's like watching my grandbaby come into the world. There's something beautiful about putting art into the world, and uplifting.
Yes, thank you. Renata, did you feel like you had the same type of experience?
I think it began to become that experience. I think the second week when I let that piece go, I was like, that's not bad. I can live with that being on the internet. and by week 3, it was like, now I can share this with my friends, like people who are composition majors and people who are have more experience with this kind of thing, like people who are songwriters. I'm okay with them seeing this, with them listening to this, with them hearing my voice in this song. It took a little while to get there, but it got there.
That's great.
And for me, that was something that I really, I guess, took away from this project. I think the themes and the beats per minute for me gave me a structure. So it wasn't just flailing. I didn't feel like I was flailing anymore to record something. So it was really helpful.
Yeah, that's what I found about this too, was I think in general, people like us strive for this type of perfection. Or Colleen and I were joking like, oh my God, this is going to be on the internet for the rest of all eternity. And our grandchildren are going to be like, what was that? What? And so, and I'm always thinking like, whatever I put out on the internet, it's just there. And if there's no context, but we're in a time and space where we just need to create. We need to make things, we need to do. And that all just needs to go. And that's what I learned from the process. Like, nothing has to be perfect. I'm busy making dinner and trying to get my job done and trying to get this project. And like, let me just make something cool and fun today so that we can get it up online. And we're doing this together. And even though we were all very separate in different states, in our own homes, in our own lives, it felt beautifully cohesive to see every Zachariah pop, like, and Pesatas would pop up, and then Talaba Begays would pop up, and Chins would pop up. And every day it would have this feeling like wholeness. It just felt good because the world was not feeling that good, and it's getting harder. But this was such it was just a break from that. And so, Zachariah, this was just really wonderful. Did you feel that way too? Did you feel like every time one popped in your inbox, you were, it gave you some kind of emotion or feeling?
Yeah, it definitely gave me a reason to get out of bed. And yeah, checking my email every day, it became habitual. And I need to step away from electronics. Like, it created a new version of me, which was nice. A version where I needed to step away from everything, and I would just sit outside in the sun and read. But it was nice seeing, like you were saying, Chin would pop up, and I'm like, oh, it must be Monday or Tuesday. Awesome. And it started giving me a sense of like rhythm again. Like, oh yeah, life is still going. Like, art is still creating, because I isolate myself on purpose, even without the quarantine. This is my life. And so seeing other people live kind of vicariously through you guys.
Mm.
And it was fun seeing all of you, like Colleen's pieces, the way they started, when she was very shy to let go of it. And then to the last piece where she's like, here it is. And so it was nice seeing all that growth, and I grew with you guys. So Tailinh, how was your experience in all of this? Like, how putting yourself, because you were hesitant at first to join, and I kept saying, no,
Right.
you should totally,
Right.
you should do this. I want to see this side of you. What
Right.
was your experience?
Wonderful. I really appreciate it so much. I am so happy I was part of this. I was hesitant to join just because I work on the production side all the time, and that's how everyone pretty much knows me. Although, years ago, and I'm an actor, and I used to write a lot, and I do a lot of things. I do photography, and I make little films. I have my hand in a lot of things, like most artists and creators. But really, I think generally people know me as the We Are the Seeds director, and I focus a lot of my attention on the administrative part of that. So I just wasn't sure if it was too complicated or, but then at that point, when we were in quarantine, and there was this kind of feeling like, you know what? Life is life right now. Like, we're down to basics, and let's not complicate things like I'm complicating things. I'm complicating rules or conflicts, or no. For me, a person, Tailinh, creator, artist, do it. That was my. So then I jumped in, and Colleen helped with that too. She was like, let's do it together. Okay.
Thank you, Colleen.
And then and Zach helped too.
Yes.
But yeah, it didn't take that big of a push. It took me a day to have to really think it through. And so I loved it, and I really appreciate it. And as far as the content that I put out in the world, I'm fine. I'm fine with it. There's some times where I'm like, I don't know. You always kind of like, is this good? What are people gonna think? And then right away, I think it was at Animal, I did a really kind of funny. We did this time lapse kind of. Was it called time lapse? What's the word? I'm losing the word. I'm talking like animation, stop motion animation.
Stop motion. Yeah.
Just kind of a really silly thing. And my son Micah helped me with it. And then I was eating pasta for lunch, and I just started to film myself do it. And I was just thinking about quarantine, how we're all just like eating pasta and like everything. And then I just had all this pasta in my mouth, and I just made something. Yep. And that was a defining moment for me, because I thought, you know what? We're just making stuff. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, really doesn't matter. It was a turning point for me, because it wasn't about judgment or what people would think or anything. It's like, this is my life in these 3 hours or 4 hours that I'm making it. And this is what I have to offer the world. This picture of me stuffing pasta in my face. But yeah. No, it's been fabulous, and it allowed me to let go of a lot.
That's good. Studying music theory and composition at the University of New Mexico, the composition teachers were rough. It's like, there's a new piece, write a new piece in the style of Debussy, and it's due, in 5 days. And if you showed up with if you showed up with no piece, he's like, why didn't you show up? And no matter what excuse you gave, he's like, well, that's life. And it was hard for me, because I started with F's and then immediately went to A's. Once I realized the rhythm, and seeing all of you find that rhythm, including myself, getting back into that rhythm of like, new pieces due. I have to put something out. Especially with the project being my idea, I'm like, I need to lead in some sense. So it was fun finding that rhythm again, and it was nice seeing all of you grow and learning to let go like I did.
Yeah, I think that was it too, is that it became not about, we're putting content out on We Are the Seeds social media. And by the way, all of these gorgeous videos are on wearetheseeds.org and on our Instagram and our YouTube channel. But it shifted from being like, We Are the Seeds is doing a Gathering Seeds projects, look at what we're doing, to these 7 artists are creating and putting energy into the world and making the world more beautiful in this time and place that is really difficult for all of us. And it became like so freeing, and it became personal. It didn't become about anybody else. And if anybody wanted to join us, which they did, people loved seeing these projects pop up every day. But it turned into not being about that. It was ours, right? It was so beautiful. It was so intimate. It was ours, but they were allowed to be a part of it if they wanted to be. And that's where I found that it was so, so powerful.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, Renata?
Not really. I think I think what you've said, I echo a lot of the same sentiments. And I do agree, it was really freeing, and it became, I had to learn, and I continue to learn how to not be so critical of myself, and to think other people are being critical of what I'm doing, and just sort of, and not necessarily like not caring about what others think, because constructive criticism can still be helpful in some ways, but also just to be proud of be proud of what I was doing, and be proud of what I was creating within this context, and being happy with it, and learning just to let go and find joy in creating again, because it's something that I feel like has been stifled and in some ways lost for me. And so for it to to come out of this, it was I think the last week, I still have to turn in my thing. but
we can't wait. We're so excited.
I came up with something last night that I was like, okay, this can work. I just have to find some time to record it. But no, it's been really rejuvenating. And the last week though, I've been stuck in this creative rut, because I'm like, I don't know what to do. How am I supposed to top last week? And then yesterday I was like, I don't have to top last week. I just have to. Right. Exactly. It doesn't have to be more grandiose and more virtuosic.
I know that we were all thinking that.
But it, in the way that it can top next week is if I can feel even better about it this week, no matter, even if it's the simplest thing, even if it's, super short or whatever. If I can continue to increase my confidence in what I'm doing, then for me that for me is a win. But also recognizing that it's just a win to create something regardless.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah. Colleen, your thoughts?
Well, I just really would like to add in this conversation, first of all, how amazing it was to work with other artists. And I know I said that earlier in this collaborative, but the moment that, Renata, when we did Animal and she submitted her piece on the bears, and I remember when I used to drive, I used to live in New Hampshire when I had my first 2 children. So this was a while ago, but I would put on the public radio station and they would play classical music. I love Vivaldi, and I wouldn't know what was on, but my kids would just love it, and they would tune in and they would listen. And Cody would ask me, "What is this, Mom?" And I didn't know. And I would be like, "It's music." And when Renata did that piece, I just felt like in my heart, this has been missing in the world for our kids. We either have to go, kind of way back to find this kind of just music for them, but to hear it in contemporary form, and it was so beautiful. And I was like, I wish she would do this as an album. I remember fleetingly saying this. And then Tailinh was like, "Oh my gosh, Renata is thinking about doing this album for children." And I was like, this is just so needed in the world. And now I have a grandbaby, and if she could have that and listen to that, and you as a Native woman and doing that so beautifully, I was just realizing there are these gaps in our world that we try to fill, And sometimes just having connections like these and realizing there are people out there doing it. And if I can, offer anything in all of this, I hope I can encourage you to get that done, because it's so needed. Right, in the school systems, we need it in our school systems. Like up here in upstate New York, the school districts are 50% Mohawk, but they don't have Mohawk composers that they're listening to. They don't have Native composers that they're listening to. So I'm just excited for that to be in the world, Renata. I want you to know that. I'm cheering from
Well, I
audience.
have to say, I want both of you to collaborate, Colleen and Renata.
Yeah.
I think that would be a
so
perfect
fun.
collaboration with your writing and your music. Yeah, that would be gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of a sort of project that I've been thinking about. I haven't started it yet, but something that I've been chewing on is writing art songs for voice and piano. And on, it just kind of like snowballed into this. What am I gonna do? But no, it doesn't feel finished. I think even after I finish this piece, it won't be finished. After I finish recording, I don't feel like it will be done. And in some ways, I would want to continue writing until I get, until I get a number of pieces that I can choose from, to continue and move this on further. I don't know how motivated I will be, but the desire to continue is there.
Good.
Okay. So we had some ideas. Sorry, I'm working on the technical side here too.
No, you're fine.
We had some ideas about how to continue on. So I'm excited to see where this will go.
Stay tuned.
Zach, can you share a bit about the other artists that were part of the project and how you think their contributions balanced those of us that are here? Thank you.
And Pesata, who's from the Hickory Apache Nation as well. I went to, trying to think, like we all kind of grew up together, but she always stuck out, like, as she had that artistic kind of motivation, and seeing her turn into the dancer that she is today. She's so expressive. And I think bringing in the dancer, which I was so happy she said yes, was a nice perspective for all of us to see what they could do. And showing you guys, like, hey, you can make art in movement, which is like, well, duh, but look what she's doing with these themes. And like Colleen was saying, looking at my piece Dust, I got inspiration from all of you. I don't know if you noticed that, but I borrowed from all of you. And that's kind of one of the things I wanted to teach all of you too, is it's okay, like, to reach out, be inspired by these people. And Anne inspired me a lot, and Renata inspired me a lot. She made me think of, oh yeah, I used to compose like that. Why don't I write like that anymore, in that sort of classical sense? And Taliba, I wanted a voice there. I wanted somebody who kind of went back to, like, the tradition, who was all about tradition, and the language was important, because she did all her pieces in Navajo. It was no English at all. And I wanted people to experience that, and seeing what you can do with that, and that you can change these tempos, that the music was always there in the natives as well, deep within us. Yeah. So yeah, and Chin was, I always thought of him as like a cleansing the palate for the new week.
For the new week.
Here he is. He's always so
That's
entertaining.
right.
And
Yes.
introducing some of you, like Renata was talking, I was like, you got to see this guy perform live, because every time he does, I have a smile on my voice. Like, he's always very entertaining. So it's been fun seeing all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I had a question and I've lost it. So I want to move into talking about Candle, because that came right when everything with George Floyd started making the news, and people started rebelling against police brutality again. And a lot of people in the world started really recognizing, a lot of white people, whereas a lot of people of color know that this has been something that's been a problem for a very long time. So I don't have to tell everybody what's going on in the world. We all know. But Candle started at when that everything started to shift and erupt, and COVID wasn't the biggest trauma that we were dealing with. So I know it really informed your piece, Colleen, and I would encourage all of our listeners and viewers to, after this, to go and watch Candle by Colleen on wearetheseeds.org or YouTube, because I know my piece addressed it in a very different way, but your piece was very clearly about what's happening today. So can you tell us how that happened and how it felt making it?
I think at that point in time, I had no choice. It was just, it was in all of our minds and all of our hearts. And I think to see collectively all 50 states rise up and stand together was really overwhelming. I think, and it became so political and so divided, I think. But there is an underlying sense of horror when we see things like that. And I think for once, I don't know what it was. People always talk about a tipping point, and I think this was just the tipping point. It's gone on for too long. We are just tired of seeing brown people die in that manner, and it's too much. And so for me to even write anything else or think anything else was really impossible. It was so heavy in my heart. And when you raise brown children and you see that, there were a couple of things that really stood out. There was a gentleman who wrote on Twitter, and he said, I did the same thing George Floyd did. He was a white man. He was about our age. Well, I'm sorry, not everybody here's age, but probably 50s. And he said, I did the same thing that George Floyd did. And it's a story I tell sometimes at parties to my friends. And he died. And he's a father of two, and he died. And he said, this is what white privilege looks like. And it really struck me. And then another thing that struck me was people were saying, looting isn't protesting. And someone else said, murdering isn't policing. And I think we can't lose that. That's the perspective. If you're angry at anything in all of this, and you're not angry that brown people are dying for no reason other than the color of their skin, then you've got it all wrong. You have it all wrong. And I think, even when I wrote the poem, people tend to be hurt and angry and rise up, but then they get quiet. But for the people that have to live this every day, it never goes away. So I hope the people that are standing up now don't stand down. And I want to see, the changes made. I want to see across the board. It was amazing to me that in COVID, our doctors couldn't get masks. But when 4 officers stood by to watch a man die, we got 1 arrest. And then we have people peacefully protesting who are being brutalized again by a force.
Right.
I mean, they had tanks, they had everything they needed, to really brutalize citizens of this country. It was horrible. It was an awful thing to. But doctors are
right. Yeah, it's very ironic that we're standing up demanding justice against violence, and there's violence being used against people demanding justice against violence. It's very ugly.
It's ugly.
What do you think your piece? How do you think your piece affects the world?
That I don't know. I mean, for me, I just needed it to be said. I think, my son just read the autobiography of Malcolm X. And of course, he was murdered in the middle of the autobiography. So we had discussing all of this before this happened. So, a lot of that was in my mind, how the powers that be, they appoint people that look like us to placate the situation, who are not on our side. And, historically, especially for Native people, this has happened time and time again. For African American people, it has happened time and time again. And it's exhausting. And the voices that we should be hearing, even in our history books, American history has been very careful to idolize the right people, so to speak, not the people telling you to rise up, to make change, to allow, nothing in the country has come by everybody being peaceful. People look at the Boston Tea Party, right? I mean, America celebrates certain parts of its history that has risen up, that has, had to become violent to make change. But when it's brown people doing that, we're subdued and we're erased from the history books, and we're making the villain and the bad guy. So I hope if my poem gives the world anything, it's to think about our realities, and the things that we have to suffer, that no one should be suffering. And it's very difficult. And when you're a mom and you know that your children are subjected to those things because of the color of their skin, it's very, very hard. It's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking.
Thank you. Zach, do you think art can change the world?
Oh, of course. I mean, it's all subjective in the end, but artists tend to be inspired by what's out there. Even people who kind of isolate themselves, like me, you have no choice because it's there. It's people are talking about it. It's on social media. It's on the news. It's in the air. And we as artists interpret that, and that's one of our jobs, whether we like it or not, is we interpret this reality.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, you motivate people, you inspire people, you help people reflect. So yeah, art can change the world, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Renata?
Yeah. Yes. I feel like Zach kind of just said what I want to say, but
yeah,
Sorry.
No. Or it's a good thing we're on the same page here.
Yeah, I think that I agree with Zach, but I'm also, starting to think about how the police, like Colleen says, you see the police decked out, and the healthcare workers don't have the equipment, and they're so overfunded. And here in Philadelphia, before this happened, during COVID, they were going to propose cutting the entire arts budget for $4 million. But the police budget is $700 million, if I'm remembering correctly. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But I think whatever it is, the disparity is out of control, and they just want to cut the arts budget. When I think about art changing the world, it goes to not just us creating and putting things out and the energy that it takes, but it also, our art, we are the seeds, and other art organizations going out into communities and working with communities and working with children and making sure that is available, because a lot of times it's not available in schools anymore. And it creates a way of thinking and being and humanity that affects and ripples out into the world. And that's what we're lacking. And to just chop it off and then give more money to assist with brutality on the other end of it is just so confusing and wrong. And so whether or not we have funding, we need to, in my opinion, unfortunately, we just need to keep creating. And unfortunately, that's our burden as artists and art producers. And we all know this, because I saw, as soon, there are petitions now, don't cut our arts budget in Philadelphia. But at the same time, all the art groups are saying, well, we still know how to do what we do. But it's not fair and it's not okay, because art should be respected and acknowledged that it's so much a part of social justice and making the world beautiful. That's my 2 cents on that.
I like to think of art and music as preventative medicine.
Right.
Because what preventative medicine aims to do is keep you healthy so you don't end up in the hospital, so you don't end up with, certain diseases and so forth. And it's all about making proactive choices in order to not end up being sick. And, in the same way, I kind of see art and music as in that kind of way, where it's like we fill our minds and we fill our hearts and our souls with good things, with things that heal, with wholesomeness. And it if we start it with ourselves and then with our community and so forth, it has the potential to not only heal, but to create change and to prevent a community from harm by just making sure that everyone or by utilizing art and music as a way to stay in a healthy space, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually.
Right.
So.
Let's talk about that then in our traditions. Art is not separate from who we are, and it's very much become that in the world we live in today. But for each of you in your traditions, in your communities, and with your ancestors, how did it wasn't separate? Can you speak on that a bit?
So in Navajo, the word for music is to sing. There is no word for like non-vocal music, because to sing, and the word to sing, and the word singer is synonymous with a healer. So as far as Navajo, traditional culture goes, those music and healing are intertwined. They're the same thing. There's no, you can't separate them. And so that sort of, and the way that the Navajo language talks about music, you don't say, I don't like that song. You can't say, I hate this piece. Or it would be really awkward. Like you just don't phrase it like that. So I remember sort of my dad or my mom or, my grandparents, when they would listen to a piece that it wasn't their taste. They never said, I don't like that, or that doesn't sound good. It was just, that just sounds all somehow. Like, like I mean, that would be like the sort of the best translation of it. It just sounds somehow like maybe it's sort of the underlying language is sort of like, your intention was good. Maybe it works for somebody else. It's not necessarily doing it for me. But, I'm sure there's someone somewhere out there that is enjoying what you're playing, or what you're playing, or what you're singing, or whatever. And to me, that just shifts like to learn about that sort of shifted my perspective on music. As like, it's not like I don't like Bartok, or I don't like Wagner, even though both of them as people weren't exactly great. But to say I hate their music, or to say their music is no good, or to say that about anybody's music, it can be really detrimental to how you think about music and interact with music. And I guess this would also apply to art too.
Thank you. Thank you. We have to wrap up soon, but if Zach and Colleen can chime in real quick on that, and then we'll wrap up the show.
I will go because I think we should end on Zach because he's so fabulous. But
I'm sleeping.
I think that, this is part of our healing. And for Native people, especially, we have always created through incredible oppression and horrible conditions and outlet for us. It's like people, will you give to cancer research? Why aren't we talking about preventative research? Why aren't we talking about the food we eat and the GMOs and all of the things that they put in it? Why aren't we talking about the things that make us sick? Why aren't we talking about the companies, the corporations that pollute our water? Why aren't we talking about those things? It's not about the cure, right? It's about preventing. And for our children, this is so important. And you can't pull that from them, because then where do they have to go? It's like the schools that stopped detention and started yoga or meditation, and they're finding like 100% difference in how kids are behaving. This isn't a surprise to us. This isn't a
right.
Who have lived under oppression and lived under anger and lived under these abilities to never express ourselves the way they used to cut our hair and make us non-Indian. So yes, it's preventative, and we need to hold on to that and keep creating, and we will.
Thank you, Colleen. And Zach?
Music truly is an oral tradition, especially with natives. And I think the reason we use it is because it transcends language. It's a song, regardless of the language you're doing. By singing it, you're preserving something, and you're teaching something that you don't even know. And that's really all I have to say about that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Zachariah, for taking on this beautiful project and developing whatever is coming next. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Renata, and everybody else who's been a part of this project. I really appreciate all of you so very much. Thanks everybody for listening. This is Rise and Thrive with Tailinh Agoyo, and we will see you next week, next Thursday at 11 a.m. Bye.
Bye-bye.